The Palace of Versailles was a glittering dream on the outside, but a revolting nightmare up close. Here's the truth that no one tells you. If you stood in front of the Palace of Versailles today, you'd probably be amazed. It's stunning. Massive fountains, golden gates, fancy gardens, rooms full of mirrors and marble. Everything screams wealth, power, and glory. But if you could travel back in time to the 1600s, if you walked through the same halls while King Louis XVII was alive, you wouldn't be able to breathe because Versailles stank. It didn't just smell bad, it was disgusting. The air was filled with the stench of human waste, sweat, and expensive perfume so strong it burned your nose. The story of what Versailles actually smelled like isn't just about bad hygiene. It's about the staggering contrast between the heights of human opulence and the depths of human grime, all crammed under one magnificent roof. So when the Sun King, Louis XVI, moved his court to Versailles in 1682, he wanted to create an unmatched symbol of his absolute power. And visually, he totally succeeded. You had the famous Hall of Mirrors, lit by thousands of candles, and these incredible gardens, engineered to be as fragrant as they were beautiful. Louis Philippe was obsessed with the smell of flowers and demanded that the gardens overflow with jasmine, tuberose, and hyacinth. The fragrance was sometimes so strong that visitors reportedly fainted. They even scented the fountains with perfume. This was the image they presented, a perfect palace that floated above the mess of ordinary life. But it was all a carefully constructed lie. The moment you stepped past those golden gates, the E would have shattered. The problem wasn't just one thing, it was everything. Versailles was built on former marshland, a terrible location that lacked a basic utility, flowing water to carry waste away. On top of that, you had a huge population problem. On any given day, up to 10,000 people, nobles, servants, guards, visitors, were packed into the palace. All these people, living in close quarters without modern plumbing, created an olfactory nightmare. One eyewitness at the time wrote that the unpleasant odors in the park, the gardens, and even the chateau itself were enough to make a person gag. This wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was an overwhelming, inescapable fact of life at the most glamorous court in the world. So where did this horrifying smell come from? Let's start with something that might blow your mind: the almost complete lack of toilets. For thousands of people, there were only a few public latrines, and they were constantly overflowing. With the toilets backed up, people got creative, and by creative, we mean gross. Courtiers would just relieve themselves wherever was convenient, in hallways, behind curtains, on grand staircases. The German-born Princess Elizabeth Charlotte wrote in disgust that it is impossible to leave one's apartment without seeing someone peeing. Chamber pots were the main solution, but what happened to the contents? They were often just chucked out of the nearest window. If you were walking below, you had to be on high alert. Even Queen Marie Antoinette was allegedly hit by flying waste on one occasion. The sewage that was collected would seep through the walls and floors, dripping into bedrooms and even the kitchens. Due 1715, it was so bad that a new rule was made. The hallways had to be cleared of feces once a week. Let that sink in. The problem wasn't that someone had made a mess. The problem was that the mess was only being cleaned up weekly. Next, let's talk about body odor. In the 17th and 18th centuries, people thought bathing in hot water was dangerous. Yes, dangerous. The medical community believed it weakened the body and opened your pores to let in disease. So full body baths were incredibly rare. It's rumored that Louis XVI himself only took about 3 baths in his entire life, and usually only when a doctor told him to. Instead, people did a dry wash. They'd rub their skin with a cloth and change their linen shirts, thinking clean linen was more important than clean skin. Now imagine thousands of people who rarely bathe, all squeezed into crowded, unventilated rooms. The sheer force of the body odor must have been staggering. And the human smells were just the beginning. The kitchens were filled with the stench of rotting food scraps, which brought in hordes of rats and mice. Nobles brought their pets to court, and their waste added to the mess. Feral cats roamed the grounds, using the palace as a giant litter box, and the main roads were reportedly littered with their dead bodies. The entire palace was a symphony of decay. So how did anyone survive this? The answer was perfume, and lots of it. But this wasn't perfume as we know it today. At Versailles, perfume was a weapon. It was a desperate attempt to mask the ever-present stench. The court became so saturated with fragrance that it earned the nickname the perfumed court. Louis Castro's demanded that his personal rooms be scented with a different fragrance every single day. Everything was perfumed: gloves, fans, wigs, even the furniture. But instead of solving the problem, it just made it worse. This created a sickly, cloying atmosphere, a toxic cloud where heavy floral scents of rose and jasmine mingled with the underlying notes of urine, sweat, and garbage. By the time Marie Antoinette arrived, things were a little more refined, but perfume was still an absolute necessity. She had bowls of fresh flowers and scented vinegars placed throughout her rooms to battle the stink. Ladies carried small bottles of these vinegars to hold to their noses, both to revive themselves and to shield them from the person standing next to them. Marie Antoinette famously ordered no less than 18 pairs of perfumed gloves a month, each pair probably worn only once. It was a constant, fragrant war against the filth they all lived in. This obsession with scent had a lasting legacy. It helped establish France as the center of the perfume world, a reputation it still holds today. The relentless demand from the court drove innovation, pushing perfumers to create more and more complex fragrances. Today, the Palace of Versailles is, thankfully, clean. But in 2023, the palace opened the Perfumer's Garden on the Trianon estate, a space dedicated to recreating the sensory world of the 17th century. It features hundreds of scented plants, including some with intentionally unpleasant odors, to give visitors a hint of the extreme contrasts that defined life at court, the beautiful and the vile, side by side. The story of Versailles' smell is a powerful reminder that history is often much stranger and more visceral than we imagine. If you found this dive into the dirty secrets of the past fascinating, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. And let us know in the comments, what historical place or period do you want us to uncover the hidden truths about next? The Palace of Versailles is a monument to luxury, art, and power. But it is also a monument to a shocking paradox. A place of gilded squalor, where people were surrounded by breathtaking beauty while holding perfumed handkerchiefs to their noses to avoid gagging. The next time you see a picture of the Hall of Mirrors, remember the smell. It's a reminder that history isn't just what we see in paintings. It's what we feel, what we touch, and in this case, what we would have desperately tried not to breathe.